Hey guys, welcome back to my studio. I am getting ready for a show. Today is Thursday and my show's happening on Sunday, so I'm just out here, got my Encaustic griddle set up, and I was going to show you a few things about Encaustic, but if you're local and if you're in town, if you're going to be around on Sunday, come on out to the factory. We're doing the Sunday Franklin Market, all kinds of vendors, some great stuff. You can start your Christmas shopping early. It's full of handmade stuff and artisans and music and food. It's going to be great. So I will have something set up there with just pretty much strictly encaustic work. I do work in oils, but I'm not going to really have my oil paintings there. So I wanted to show you a little bit. I am doing a number of different things. I'm framing finished pieces. I'm wiring the back of them so they're ready. I've been working on encaustic too, but I'm trying to wrap that up so I can get everything ready to go. So this piece I finished earlier. It's just a series of leaves that I've treated with wax. And then this one, these are all ones that I still need to frame yet. This one's a lot of textural and there's some hot air balloons in it. This one you've seen if you've seen anything online. I finished that a few days ago. This one I did with the eclipse that happened in Nashville recently. So that one's done. This one's done. And if you were going to be around on Sunday, I would share with you a little bit more about the layers and the materials and the processes that are included. This is a photograph I took at the beach. This is a photograph I took at the beach. This guy let me get so close. He was showing off, I think. Anyway, so this one, I have a dear friend, Sharon, who lives in Chattanooga, and one weekend I went down to her place and she showed me this really amazing process by which you put orange oil. It's some orange cleaning. It's very specifically this certain orange cleaner that you can apply to National Geographic pages. The ink and the oil in it just chemically create this beautiful thing that happens where you don't necessarily lose the images, but the ink starts to drip and bleed, but it doesn't all just blend into one color. It kind of keeps its shape and its colors. And so I have several papers that I treated like that, and so these are either end here. I've glued those on. The centerpiece is actually a paper towel. If you look at my griddle right here, I don't know if you can see the griddle, but sometimes right here there's some paint on it, and sometimes what happens on the griddle top is really magical. The colors will swirl together. They won't just blend, and they'll swirl in this beautiful way, kind of create a texture or a pattern that's really beautiful. And you can pick that up by what's called a monoprint. You can take rice paper. In this case, I took a piece of paper towel and I laid it down on the hot griddle and captured what was happening on the griddle. And so they become collage elements in a later piece. But so I've glued those pieces down. So now I'm ready to treat this with encaustic medium. So I wanted to show you how to do that because you haven't seen this part yet. So I want you to see this part. So this is my wax medium. It's completely molten. It's really important to have it at the right temperature. If it's not hot enough, it starts to solidify, and it's a real pain to try to let it glide over the surface if it's trying to turn into a solid. If you get it too hot though, everything starts to smoke. So you just have to be careful about the regulation, and if you're really interested in setting this up at home and you want that information, I've got some information on that. But so I'm going to start. I am going to apply a layer of wax onto the surface. I always keep my board really close to the heat source, and I keep my brush as close to the heat source as possible, and I dip it in often because it'll start to harden if it comes away from the heat for any length of time. So I work really close to the griddle, and I'm just gonna brush a layer. It's just really important that you cover all the surfaces. You don't want any raw paper or any raw surfaces. They all need to be covered with the wax. So I'm just going to go around and make sure everything's covered. I just put a thin layer on. You don't need anything really thick, at least I don't. I mean, it just depends on what you're going for as an artist. But, okay, so this has, I'm just going to catch it by the light and just make sure there aren't any raw spaces there. I'm just going to hit it a little bit more with where it's a little thin. All right, so the very next thing that you do, once you've gotten that applied, this is a heat gun. You can find this in any paint store. It's a heat gun used to melt old layers of paint. So anywhere Home Depot, True Value, anywhere they sell paint supplies, you can find one of these. I'm going to turn it on low, and I'm going to fuse these two surfaces. So right now, you have two separate layers. You have that paper layer underneath, and then you have the wax layer. So what happens is I apply heat to this, that paper surface is going to come up into the wax, and they're going to become one surface, and you really need to do that, and that's called the fusing process. So I'm going to fuse these two layers together. They become one layer, and all you need to do is just look for a sheen to climb across the surface. That's all you need. If you keep the heat on too long, you start to begin to create craters and little divots. You don't really need to do that. All you're doing is just looking for a sheen to glide across the surface. And I don't know if you can see it or not, but there we go. Let's see. There, it's starting. And I'm just going to make sure that I cover all the surface area with the heat. And a hairdryer won't work because a hairdryer doesn't get hot enough. The tip on this heat gun can get as hot as 1500 degrees. I don't think that it ever gets that hot, but it can. So you have to just be mindful of where you're sticking the surface and be safe. But a hairdryer doesn't get that hot, and a hairdryer just blows. This is more, you can control the way that you're applying the heat with the heat gun, and you can't do that with a hairdryer. Alright, so yeah, I'm just going to make sure I hit all of that. Alright, and so normally I will have 4, 5, 6, a dozen pieces that I'm working on at one time. Because it is a process, it's an unfolding, so you have to wait and you have to be patient. I can't, the next step here is scraping with the loop tool that I've showed you before. I can't scrape this right now, it's too hot. So if I start to scrape this, it's just going to make a big waxy mess. It's not ready yet. So I'm going to lay this aside until it cools off a little bit. I'll come back to it, and typically I would just go to another piece that I've been waiting for that's ready to do something else to. So it's kind of fun because you can kind of go back and forth, and there's a lot of freedom. And so I want to invite you, if you are interested in this medium. For one thing, I'm going to do a workshop in October, a weekend workshop, a Saturday and Sunday workshop, where I will show you techniques, and you'll get to try all of this and see how it feels, and it's so much fun. And then also, there's still time to sign up for a Waking Up Gray group. I'm starting next Thursday. I'm offering a morning class and an evening class. So if one of those time frames works for you on a Thursday, go to my website, flyforward.org, You can still sign up for that. It's starting next week. We go through April, and on our off days, we're going to go through the book, Waking Up Gray. This is Waking Up Gray. We're going to go through this book, but on the off days, we're going to have studio days and journaling days. And at least 2 of those days, we will be turning on the griddles, and I will be teaching Encaustic. So if you have a desire to wake something up in you creatively, this would be a great place for you to start this fall. On page 123 of the book, it's in chapter 8, my question is, what does God want to resurrect in you? So I'm going to leave you with that question. Maybe there's something that you've put down that has been kind of dormant for a while. It's kind of gotten a back burner kind of status for you. I'm going to challenge you and ask you to look into that. What needs resurrection in you that's dead, or that's been injured, or that's been harmed, or and how can you think about fanning the flames and waking that up? That's what we're going to talk about. That's what this is all about. That's what Waking Up Gray is all about. So I'm going to leave you with that question. Go to my website, flyforward.org, sign up, and come be with me this year. We're going to look at all these things together. I'd love for you to join me.